Hi, my name is Mitch Ray, and today I'll be talking about what I learned in biology. We're going to start with Unit 1, the nature of science and biology. We're going to start with the scientific method. The scientific method is used as a set of guidelines to perform experiments and to draw conclusions. All experiments start with a question. Before you can actually do an experiment, you need to find out what experiment you're actually doing. After you figure out what experiment you're doing, you need to start making observations about that experiment to come up with a hypothesis. A hypothesis is an educated guess about what the outcome of your experiment will be. Once you come up with a hypothesis, now it's time to test it. Gather all your materials and begin the experiment. Then it's time to draw your conclusions, where you state whether your hypothesis was true or false. Once you have drawn a conclusion, use charts and graphs to better display your information. Now we're going to talk about Unit 2, which revolves all around photosynthesis. As the first part of talking in this unit, we're going to talk a little bit about energy. We are first going to define a few terms that have to do with energy. Potential energy is energy that is currently not in use and is stored. Kinetic energy, on the other hand, is energy that is currently being used. The gasoline in this gas can is representative of potential energy because it is stored and not being used. It does not become kinetic energy until it is in the car and starts moving. We also want to cover the terms catabolism and anabolism. Catabolism is the process of breaking down organic molecules, while anabolism is the action of building them up. We also want to know what a catalyst is. A catalyst is a chemical that can speed up the rate of a chemical reaction. Now we can move on to cover the process of photosynthesis. For photosynthesis to occur, we need a few components. First, we need carbon dioxide, then we need sunlight, and finally we need water. Now that we have these components, we can go through the process of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis starts when the chloroplasts in the plants begin to absorb the sun's energy. Then stomata, small holes in the leaves, take in the carbon dioxide. After this, the roots in the ground absorb all the water. Then when the chlorophyll uses the sun's energy, it can turn water and carbon dioxide into glucose. Then, finally, oxygen is emitted once the process is complete. Now we are looking at Unit 3, which covers cell structure. We are going to look at prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Prokaryotic cells are the smallest and simplest form of a cell. They're single-celled. They lack a nucleus. They are most commonly found in the form of bacteria, and they are much smaller than eukaryotic cells. Eukaryotic cells, on the other hand, have a nucleus and other organelles. They are much larger than prokaryotic cells, and they are the kind of cells that make up animals, plants, fungi, and protists. Next, we will talk about some of the organelles that make up eukaryotic cells. The endoplasmic reticulum, or ER, contains two parts, both a smooth and rough. The smooth part of the ER helps with storage and transportation. The rough section helps the ribosomes in making proteins. Ribosomes are the organelles that actually create the proteins. The Golgi complex helps assemble new material for the cell membrane. Mitochondria are unique because they contain their own DNA, known as mDNA. Mitochondria also converts sugars into ATP. Now we're moving on to Unit 4, genetics. Genetics and heredity go hand in hand. Heredity is the passing of traits from a parent to its offspring. We will be looking at a Punnett square. A Punnett square is a chart that shows all possible genotype outcomes if the genotypes of the parents are known. When looking at a genotype, we have to look at whether it's a dominant trait or a recessive trait. A dominant trait will be shown during a homozygous dominant trait or a heterozygous trait. and a recessive will only be shown if it is a homozygous recessive gene. Heterozygous genotypes include one dominant gene and one recessive. Homozygous contain two of the same gene, either two dominant or two recessive. A genotype is the genetic makeup of an organism, and a phenotype is the physical attribute caused by the genotype. Now let's briefly talk about Unit 5, Evolution. Charles Darwin was a scientist who studied evolution, and he had 4 main points: adaptation, meaning all organisms adapt to their environments; variation, meaning all organisms are variable in their traits; over-reproduction, meaning all organisms tend to reproduce beyond their environment's capacity to support them; and natural selection. Since not all organisms are equally well adapted to their environments, some will survive and reproduce better than others. Let's create an example for evolution right now. Let's say there are a species of monkey who live in an environment with very tall branches. With a shorter tail, these monkeys have difficulty grabbing onto these tall branches. But with evolution, through generations, these monkeys could form a longer tail to grab onto the branches easier. So what did I learn in biology this semester? Well, I learned a whole lot. I learned about cell structure, photosynthesis, evolution. The content in this semester was very interesting, and I'm looking forward to next semester. I'm Mitch Ray. Thanks for watching.